Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good following morning. This is AMA number 74. Our guest today is Hannah Lessing from Austria. We'll talk all about Hannah in a few minutes. And I'm here with my co-host and partner in crime who doesn't ever commit any crime, Rabbi Avi Baumel. Today is October 27th. Hebrew date, Avi?
The 21st of Cheshvan, 5782. Shalom. Excellent. From Efrat, the holy city in the Judean hills.
Efrat, a city close to my heart, not only because you and the rest of the Baumels live there, but because it was founded by Rabbi Riskin.
He's the man. He's the man. Unbelievable.
He's the man.
Yeah, so I just got back last night. I tell you, the flight was packed. Israeli tourists, a lot of people traveling back and forth. Actually, it was pretty quiet though. Got my tests, got my negatives, all good. Back in the home.
Good morning, Jeffrey Rolat. So wait, Avi, talk to me a little bit about that. What Israel being open, closed, if for you to fly as an Israeli citizen that was vaccinated in Israel, you have to take a test before you go and then a test once you land at the airport. Is that correct?
The answer is that there's 100% of people have to take a test when they land, but before you go, it depends, I think, on which country you're going from.
Okay.
So Poland used to have a questionable decision about it, but it's pretty clear, as I was checked twice and three times for a PCR, a negative PCR. They checked the date, they checked my passport, so they're pretty serious about it. I took the test the day before, and then I'm good to go.
I took my test today because I am flying tomorrow.
Okay, all right. Well, in the world, we're flying again. Of course, we keep our masks on at all times, but it seems like people are getting, are ready to move on. That's what I found in the airport, at least.
Yeah. Well, I have 8 flights coming up in 2 weeks.
Whoa.
So it's a lot. It's Krakow, Amsterdam to LA, San Francisco, New York, Fort Lauderdale, Miami, New York, Paris, Krakow.
Whoa. All right. Get ready. Hope you have a very comfortable mask because they're going to be bothering you about it the whole time.
I have lots of masks. Tell me, we have questions. Jeffrey is asking, how long is the delay at Ben Gurion?
It just depends on when you come. The Poland flight comes in at such a good hour. I was the only first individual to actually come to the test. I got out, the plane landed at 8 p.m. and I was out of the airport at 8:15 p.m. Of course, I never use baggage, so I took my stuff and I sprinted and I got my test in exactly 2 minutes and I was out. So that's because it was a quiet time in the airport. But when New York flights come, I imagine it's much more busy. But they have a lot of people. There's I don't know. There's room for 50 people to be checking at the same time. So we'll see. We'll see what happens November 1st, right? November 1st is supposed to be this time to welcome back tourists as long as they're vaccinated. But that's the first time in 2 years?
So vaccinated tourists can visit Israel starting on November 13th.
I thought it was November 1st, but you probably have more.
Okay, with certain caveats, though. You have to be vaccinated at this time and that and all these, right?
Right. Yeah, you have to have a vaccination that's most
6
recent.
months.
Right.
I think 6 months, yeah. So I hope to visit soon. I haven't been to Israel in 2 years almost.
Well, as I said, I saw a lot of people visiting, a lot of people on the plane, and the Ministry of Transportation or the Ministry of Tourism just announced that we're back to normal, some sense of normalcy. So we should get the groups to start going back to Poland. So that's a big deal. It's like, I don't know, 100,000 students or something like that over the course of each year. And if that happens, then once, the whole tourist industry starts up again, and getting back to, what it was pre-COVID time. So I'm hoping that takes place.
Does that mean that Israel and Poland are friends again?
I do not have the inside scoop on that. All I know is what I read in the paper. So, I imagine they're trying to just keeps things just
all
quiet.
I know is what I read in the paper. Avi Baum.
Listen, what do I know? No one
You're a
tells
tour
me.
guide. Don't you have some inside scoop?
Listen, the tour guides, thank God I didn't choose to make this my livelihood, because they got killed. The last 2 years, they got killed in the government. Even the Benedict government that said we need to open everything up, everything is except for tourism, so except for tour guides. So they took a bath, and I don't know how they survived. But we'll see what happens in event. If in 6 months things start getting back to normal, then maybe
I don't understand certain things in the world. There's 3% unemployment in Poland. I don't understand how that's the case. I don't understand how COVID and businesses and closed. I don't understand how the effect is what it is. I'm very confused on a macroeconomic level that I generally feel like I have a basic understanding of how things work, and this is very strange to me.
I don't really understand when Poland kind of presents their statistics, or I'm not sure. I'm very unclear about it. So
all right, well, some news at the JCC. We did something interesting. We're making a new promotional film. I think every year we generally make 2 films, usually a Ride for the Living film and a just short promo film for the JCC. And yesterday we filmed the short promo film.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah. So it was me and Pani Zosha.
Got to go with Pani Zosha. She's our number one. So
all
that's
in.
pretty cool.
Push the chips in on Pani Zosha.
Yeah, I'll bet everything on her. She's amazing. So what'd you do with her? You get her on a bicycle?
We went to her house and we filmed her in her house, leaving her house and getting into a car and coming to the JCC. And then I greet her at the JCC, and there'll be a voiceover, and she talks about her life and how the JCC has sort of changed her life. And then I'll talk a little bit about the JCC, and then there you go.
What's amazing about the Pani Zosha story is how authentic it is. It's promotional, but every thing that comes out of her mouth is what she truly believes in her heart. So it's so nice. And those who know her know that there's nothing fake about this. There's nothing even exaggerated in the least bit.
No, she, even when doing the script for the voiceover, I was like, oh, Pani Zosha, I could say you didn't have much contact in your childhood with your Jewish identity. And she's like, I went to the Tarbut school. I was like, Pani Zosha, I say the word much there. Like she didn't, what I mean? Also, like she wanted to film things in order, because she's like the idea of, oh, no, you're not supposed to film that. Like takes everything very, very, she's very strict.
Yeah, she doesn't play into these little propagandas. She wants to say what's right and what's true. And that's why it's going to be a beautiful video, huh?
Yes, but the idea of filming and stuff, you're trying to show a certain reality, which is not, just a pure documentary style. But okay, that was fun. Rabbi Shujik visited yesterday. You just missed him.
I missed him by an hour.
We upgraded rabbi wise. We lost the Avi rabbi, and we got the chief rabbi.
All right, that works for me. And he came and had a meeting with a certain institution, a bakery that I had walked by several times, and they just looked like, I said to myself, I bet these people would be interested in making their place kosher. They have one type of bun that they make, and coffee and tea. So I said, let's talk about it.
A little background. It's a Swedish bakery right behind the JCC, wildly popular. They have another location that I remember walking by and everyone was talking about it. They make this cinnamon bun type pastry and they make it in the window. Which is very smart. Everyone walks by. And it was even during COVID when nobody was going and doing anything, it was packed. So they opened the location in Kazimierz in the Jewish quarter. The owner is very interested in everything Jewish and has a friend in Israel, and he feels he's one of those people in Poland, and we know many of them that are, have a certain very strong feeling for the Jewish people, and for him having it kosher, I don't think it's even so much a financial thing. I think he just feels that it's the right thing to do. So luckily, one product, there's nothing in there that we went, Rabbi Shujik went product by product, by ingredient, and they're only making these, buns. So it looks like a good chance that the buns will certainly be kosher. And then just a few things about tea and coffee, which weren't kosher. If they want to change that, then you'll have something else to eat, Avi. And I think, knowing your general food tendencies, I think having a cinnamon bun as the one kosher restaurant in Krakow for you will be perfect.
This is a big deal for me. I'm not saying it was self-serving. It just happened to be something that, made sense, but that I can sit in a coffee house and have a fresh, hot bun, a cinnamon bun. Yes, please.
And it's literally 10 feet away from the JCC, which is very exciting.
The JCC staff already buys it all the time, and I just have to smell it. So now I can finally.
The JCC staff is hooked on it, and it's even really closer than they realize, because there's a back gate that I have the key to, so you could actually almost, it's almost an extension of the building.
Awesome.
Also,
right.
Very nice. It's that little area is opening up, the street behind the JCC, because there's the Hotel Solomon that opened there, that we went also this week on a visit. And we saw the rooms, and we got a tour of the whole hotel. And they're also very interested in Jewish tourism there. They have a mezuzah on every door and on the door frame, and their menu is kosher friendly, and they're very eager to work with us. And again, it's right behind the building. It's a nice hotel, so fascinating for us.
Yeah, maybe it's a good sign of things to come. That there's going to be more tourism and more Jews coming, and. We should also mention the new synagogue. Actually, that's something.
The new synagogue. Please tell us about the new synagogue, Avi.
Yes, after finally getting kicked out of the Isaac synagogue by the Gemina for the umpteenth time, and making life just miserable for Jews, the only working Jewish community minyan in Krakow. Rabbi Eliezer decided to rent some space on Ditla and Sebastiana, and it's a nice space that has already. There's been minyans going on and kiddishes, and he's going to go through a little renovation. I think it should have room for, I don't know, I guess up to 100, maybe. Wow, tight.
Not bad. Yeah. Plus Jews in a bank. I like the whole stereotype converging there.
I forgot to mention it was a bank. Yes, there's still a bankomat there, so that's nice on Shabbos. If you the stucka pushka goes around during the week,
and you can make a deposit to Hashem of your prayers and make a withdrawal of your money.
Wasn't that what like the temple was back in the day? I mean,
I believe that's why Christianity started, because of the direct system. I think there might have been something with money changers in the temple.
I've heard something about that.
I might have skipped that day in yeshiva. Anyway, Avi, let's hurry. I know our guest today is on a tight schedule, and we're really, really lucky to have her. So let's bring in today's guest, who I got to know just a little bit through Holocaust Survivor Day, Hannah Lessing. Hannah is the Secretary General of. She heads the she's the co-head of the Austrian delegation of the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance. She's based in Vienna, born in Vienna. Interesting story. Her father is a very well-known photographer, Eric Lessing. And she is her main thing, for quite a while, 25 years, she's been the Secretary General of the National Fund of the Republic of Austria for Victims of National Socialism. So she is really the one who is taking care of Austrian Holocaust survivors and representing Austria in in an international forum in terms of Holocaust, and has done many, many other things. And we are incredibly lucky to have you with us today. Hannah, how are you?
Hi, I'm fine. Just preparing my live podium discussion at 6:30 tonight. It's a crazy time.
Listen, it's good to be after, especially after COVID, and we're all, starting to be busy again. I think it's a good way to be.
True, true.
Anna, shalom. Pleasure to meet you.
Hi, Robbie. Avi Maumon.
Nice
to meet you.
And I have to tell you something. I love, as somebody who's not the most observant person, the thing that I love are coincidences and these things and irony and all this. So I will tell you that my computer is not resting on my desk. It's on a book. Every week I put it when I have a Zoom call or an AMA, I put it on a book. And the book that I always put it on is this book.
Oh, really?
A book of Magna photographers. And then what could it be when I open the book and then I realize when I see and I'm looking at your bio that your father is, of course.
Yes, that's my dad. Yes.
Okay, so I'm looking through Eric Lessing's photographs and there are 5 photographs here, so not hundreds and hundreds of photographs, 5, most of them from Poland. And then this one from a Jewish school in Krakow.
I know.
This book is under my computer all the time. So I just think it's
I had an exhibition. I had an exhibition actually in Krakow. You were not in Krakow yet, I suppose. It was 4 years ago. Lessing presents Lessing, where I showed also the Krakow picture. Sure.
Oh no, I was. I've been here for a while, but I remember seeing this. So that's quite how exciting that.
There are things which are shared, but and my mother was a journalist. She was the stringer for Time magazine for 40 years in Austria. And as Austrians didn't need a visa to go to Poland, she did all the coverage of the Solidarność stories until she was caught really at the airport by the soldiers and the police, and they said, Mrs. Lessing, this is your plane directly back to Vienna. She was extradited.
Wow. Back in the good times.
Yeah.
Well, I think if you're doing that from Austria, it wasn't so bad. If you would have been coming from another Eastern Bloc country, you would have been in a lot more trouble.
Yeah. No, they couldn't do anything except expel her.
Exactly.
Hannah, I'm excited about this call and to learn about Vienna. I have actually a personal connection to Vienna on both sides of my grandparents. So I'm pretty interested in hearing what you have to say. My mother's father was actually born in Vienna.
Okay.
And I have a first cousin who's working very hard to get an Austrian passport because he wants to come to the EU, and he's going through the whole process and he's getting us all the information. His father's, my grandfather's, I think grandparents were taken to the where were they taken? To Bergen-Belsen, I believe. They unfortunately were murdered. And my grandfather ended up from there going to Bielsko-Biała, and from there to Kaunas, from there to Gihara, and ended up in Shanghai. But so that's one connection to Vienna. And my other grandfather, who was from Poland, his father had some kidney problems or liver problems, and he went to apparently in 1900 in Vienna. That was the place that you went.
Oh, medicine was perfect. Yes.
Yeah. And he passed away. He's buried, I believe, I haven't been to the cemetery there, but he's buried in that cemetery.
There are 3 big cemeteries in Vienna, but there are some. You know what? I will put also a book under my. It's easier. It will be not a Jewish encyclopedia, but something like this. So I could look up, if you send me the names of your ancestors, I can look up where the graves are and how they are being kept, because my organization is also responsible for renovating the Jewish cemeteries in Austria.
Fantastic. Wow.
Wonderful. So Hannah, I want to talk to you about what you're doing, but maybe start a little bit of the background about your family. So you have a very interesting family history. We already talked about your father and your mother, but maybe talk a little bit about the background, about the family, your Holocaust connection to, because you're not just randomly doing your job.
No, I'm not randomly doing my job. And okay, because as I agreed that you can ask me anything, I will have to admit to many things which will be, it was hard for me in the beginning. So we were born of 2.
I don't want to ask you about anything you don't want to talk about, though.
No, it's interesting because it's exactly, why I'm doing the job the way I'm doing it. When we were born, my parents put in our birth certificate without religion. My father emigrated to Palestine in 1939. His mother, he had already a possibility to emigrate in 38, but his mother was a lone mother. She was a widow already. So my father remained, and they said, no, that's fine. We do it this way. You stay with me. And then she realized, okay, he can't stay. And she sent him away in 39. Then they were lucky to get from Alois Brunner, a Jewish person in the Jewish community, another pass for Palestine. And so his mother remained in Austria with her mother, and they were deported in 1942 to Theresienstadt. And in 1944, my grandmother was deported to Auschwitz, where she was murdered. My mother, which I didn't know until I was old enough to realize, was born in 1925 of non-Jewish parents. They were Protestants, if I understood well. So at the age of 18, she had to join, like every other girl, the Arbeitsdienst. And she was also member of the BDM, like every girl. And she was working for the Baldur von Schirach, who was the head of the Viennese Gau. She was the air raid alarm announcer. Mm-hmm. So we were born into a typical Austrian family. That National Socialism is part of Austria's and Germany's family histories. So I have on one hand my father, the survivor, and my grandmother being killed in Auschwitz, and I have on the other hand my mother, who probably I blamed her for not being a victim. Could have been so much simpler to have two victims. And for years we didn't talk. I didn't even know that my grandmother was killed in Auschwitz. And only at the age of 8, I was the youngest of 3 siblings. The Catholic religion teacher in the French school told me, Hannah, everybody's going into religion course and it could be nice for you. Why wouldn't you do this? And everybody could read stories, blah, blah, blah. And so I went home to my mother and I gave her a little wooden cross and I said, everybody is doing first communion. I would like to be part of this. So my mother looked at me and said, Hannah, just to make things clear, if we are anything, then we are Jews.
Whoa.
And she took my siblings, we were 3 kids, me 8, my brother 11, my sister 14, and herself to the Jewish community and said, we want to convert, or we didn't come from nowhere. We didn't have a religion. So it took 2 years for learning. My mother, who had very Austrian names, Gertraud Ernestine Clotilde, chose Rachel. My name was Hannah Miriam. I chose Sarah. My sister chose Nomi, and my brother David. And my brother was really bar mitzvah on the day that we converted. But it took us years. I became very religious. I became very believing. I found my home in my religion, but for years I heard in the synagogue, oh, the kids of the Nazi. So it took us time to understand that a girl at 18, she was not member of the party. She worked in the Arbeitsdienst, but I resented her for not being also the Yiddish mama that I wanted to have. But in fact, she gave me the biggest present of bringing us to the synagogue and saying, we convert. So that's my background, this duality, knowing that it's never black or white. You have to give it a chance to understand what's the need of yourself, of the other. So that's why I do this job.
I think life is always a lot more complicated than we would like it to be when we're young, and we want everything to be simple and to fit into the neat boxes. And then we understand, I think we go through the difficult period of seeing the complexity and feeling very much different when we're not, easily fit in these things. And then I think we get older and appreciate that and think how interesting and how much it adds to who we are by having gone through something a little bit less than the typical background.
True. true. I mentioned this when at the opening of the exhibition that we just opened in Auschwitz. I was on stage moderating the 2 hours live program, which was broadcasted also in Austria. And I said, that's my story. In short, I said exactly the same story. And some people were like totally taken aback and said, how can you speak about your mother's past? I said, but this is who I am. This is my mother, who taught me that, first of all, you can change. Second of all, when you're young, you can be influenced, etc. So I think that while I was scared to tell it in the beginning of my job to survivors, that I had this side in me, because I remember that in the first months that I was working for the fund in '95, there was a person who just ran through the offices and came in front of me and said, you're working for Austria. All of them are Nazis here. And if you don't prove to me that both your grandparents are Jewish, then you're a Nazi too. And I was like, oh my God, I will never be able to work for the survivors because I can't do it right. I'm not clean.
Yeah.
It was so difficult in the beginning.
But you never thought to leave Austria or Vienna. This was, you planted a family, you planted your roots.
I lived in Paris for a long time. I lived in Israel. I came back probably always again and again because I'm very Viennese. It's like most of my clients who always say, Austrian, yes, but I'm Viennese. So I'm really, if you put me somewhere else in Austria, probably I won't be that happy. But Vienna is my home. That's where my parents are buried. That's where my siblings are, my nephews are. I have a wonderful husband, but I don't have children. So it's my home. Yeah.
So Avi and I are both from New York, and I think we would probably say the same thing about New York versus the United States. So I understand that, especially Vienna. I think historically, Viennese always, certain cities in the world, if you're from them, you always feel a little bit have this sense of I don't want to say arrogance, but that you're coming from a special place that might be a little bit better than other places. Hannah, I'm always interested in I think the German narrative, the complexity of the Holocaust is the complexity of the Holocaust, but the German narrative is certainly a more straightforward one than others, than other countries that bear certain culpability. I'm interested always in as a American or as a Pole or as an Israeli, seeing the world, but from my perspective, trying to understand Switzerland's role or Austria's role. But what really interests me, I think that we're taught, I think we're generally taught, as much as we learn about Austria, and I don't mean in learning in a super deep level, but I mean from the casual, reasonably aware Jewish perspective, I think that our view of Austria is that Austria was lined up with Germany, but then because of the Cold War kind of was able to play the victim and got off a little bit easier than they should have, because of the nature of the Cold War, and that they were needed as this sort of buffer between the East and West. So how, obviously I'm asking you a complicated question to sort of,
no, it's fine.
How true is that? And then my other question is about how we're, leading into the next one is, how were you as a girl growing up in Vienna, going to school in Vienna, high school in Vienna and all this, how were you taught, what was Austria's role in the Holocaust scene as?
I went to French school, and I went to school. I graduated in 1981. So it was in the deepest time, even though under Bruno Kreisky, we would have hoped that things would change. We were still really deep into the victim theory.
Right, and it was before Waldheim, before they knew.
Yes, before Waldheim.
Right?
And you mentioned it correctly, is that Austria, in 1933, when Hitler ascended in Germany, Austria was still, there was an Austro-fascism, there was a lot of anti-Semitism, and really on the day of the Anschluss, I mean, November pogrom happened here in Vienna mainly. I mean, there were robberies, murders. They waited for really being against the Jews. So yes, there was a very, very fertile ground for the Anschluss and for being part of Germany. Yes, in 1943, the Allied forces said Austria was the first country to fall a victim to Hitler's aggression policy. And basing on this, during the 10 years of occupation by the Allied forces, Austrians always said, well, we were victims, And we had, through the Allied forces, the possibility to have restitution laws passed. They forced it on Austria. But in the feeling, I mean, nobody really wants to look back at how many people they murdered. So everybody was looking forward. And also there is one thing, the first Austrian governments were all made up by people who were in concentration camp themselves, because they were resistance movement fighters. So they definitely saw themselves as victims. So it perpetrated really over the years. So me in the French school in 81, Austrian school teachers, history would tell you we were the first victim. Then in French history, you were taught resistance. We were all part of resistance. Vichy and Pétain, it didn't exist. So I was doubly, and then I became Jewish. So I was anyway out of the loop. Vienna was a very, very dark city, a very old-fashioned city still in the 80s. That's one of the reasons I went to live in Paris, and then I went to live in Israel. But then Waldheim affair. The Waldheim affair suddenly reinforced something which was talked about in historian circles. Everybody's saying, like, we still have our homework to do. We cannot say that we were the first victim. We were perpetrators also. Yes, Austria as a country didn't exist, but many Austrians were at the forefront of the killing. And then you had Waldheim campaign. Who would have thought that one day I would say thank you to Mr. Waldheim, because definitely I have my job because of him. Because he really, it is like this. When there were the yellow posters and written in black on it, we vote for whom we want. I mean, this was so clearly openly anti-Semitic. Then saying that I only did my duty. So everybody said, what means doing only my duty? And so in 86, we had also the Austrian Social Democrat Chancellor Franz Vranitzky, who decided, okay, we need to do something about it. And in 91, he gave a speech at Parliament, which was then repeated also at the Knesset in 93, where he said many, many Austrians were at the forefront of perpetrators, and we need to take responsibility. And then it took still 4 years till my fund was created, and I took over the fund. But yeah, we were for many, many years refusing responsibility, such as many other countries, because it was the easiest. We would point at the Germans. The Nazis were Germans, so they were the perpetrators.
And I have to tell you a story. 5 years ago, my wife came to Poland, and then we took a trip, and we went to Vienna, and it was me, my wife, maybe my daughter, and it was magnificent because you go there, you're so it's awe-inspiring, absolutely. And we got on a bus, these hop-on, hop-off buses.
Yes.
And I was sitting in the front, and she was sitting in the back, whatever the case was. We were just going, and we were listening to the guide in English telling us about the bus goes from one place, this is this, this is that, this is this. Then it goes to the Jewish quarter. Mm-hmm. And we're all listening, and I promise you, this is what he said. Before the Second World War, this was a thriving Jewish community with all these different people, many Jews that were living here. Then they disappeared, and the Jewish community, no mention. It was like, and I looked at my wife, and she looked at me like,
they disappeared.
Mm-hmm. They disappeared.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that really what the story that they're telling is? We were in shock.
You must have really gotten exactly the one person that shouldn't be giving tours in the second district. So, because we have done a lot of educational work with teachers. From teachers, you wouldn't hear this anymore. The tour guides normally are being schooled by us, so this takes time, and you will always find you know, this expression, I think it's the same in English, where sometimes people say like, oh yeah, they lost their lives. Well, if I lose my keys, you can think about it. I don't, my grandmother didn't lose her life in Auschwitz. My grandmother was gassed, murdered, starved, everything, yeah? So it's like on Yom Kippur when we say who by a sword, who by fire. It's you know, you have it all there. So please don't use the word they lost their lives or they died. No,
Or
they
they
didn't
magically
die.
disappear. But I'm glad to hear
Magically.
that was an aberration, and you're saying that the guides and there's a group of people who are saying, you know, let's tell us the story the way it's supposed to be.
But did you confront the person?
I think it was like a recording.
Oh shit! Oh, but you know what? Okay, that's a good point. If it was a recording on Hop Off, I'll go through. I will follow up on this. I really want to know.
Tomorrow it's going to be changed, I think, according to Hannah. Hannah,
Yes.
tell us about, you're the General Secretary of the National Fund, among other things. Talk a little bit about the National Fund. What is it? Where does the money come from? What does it do? Who are you serving?
So in 1995, the National Fund was created, really coming after all those discussions that we had after the declaration that we were not the first victim. And it was supposed to be a fund to reach out to survivors from Austria, not only Jewish survivors. That's something which is very dear to my heart. Roma, Sinti, the first time that homosexuals were counted into the victims group, political persecutee, handicapped, you name them. And we were supposed to reach out to them and to make a symbolical gesture payment, which was, by then we were sitting together with the Jewish community and said like 70,000 shillings, which was like 5,000 euros today. We didn't have a clue how many we would still find in the world. And we were also supposed to do projects to help the knowledge about the Holocaust. But it was mainly a fund which was supposed to reach out to as many survivors as possible and to say whatever. It was 4 small pages of a law. It's tax money. We are funded totally by tax money. And then I heard about the job because my sister, she was working at that time at the Ministry of Social Affairs, and they told her, listen, we are looking for a Jewess and to run a new fund. And my sister said, I don't speak Hebrew. I'm so un-Yiddish, but my sister is. You know what? You should ask her. So typically Austrian at that time, it was, yeah, but she's not member of the Social Democratic Party. Normally in Austria at that time, you still got jobs because you had the right political affiliation. So I went still to the president of the parliament, who is always the head of the board. And I said, I want this job because I know what we're talking about. It was interesting. And then after 2 hours, he told me, okay, you know what, send me a letter. And I said, okay, I will never get this job. I was at that time in a very high position in a bank, and I had a very good career in front of me. And I all the time was nudging my father, if I would get the job, what would he expect from me as a representative of the Austrian government or republic? And my father wouldn't answer, and I would nudge him, and then he would tell me, can you give me back my childhood?
Whoa.
Can you bring back my mother from Auschwitz? And I couldn't. And in the first years, I always dreamt that through the opening of the archives, I would find the trace of my grandmother, and I would bring back my grandmother to my father, that she was still alive. You know, that this was like, I would have done anything for my father. And so 2 weeks later, I got the phone call that I have the job. And I looked at these papers and I said, we need to write in the name of the Republic a letter saying we're sorry, it's too late, and that we know that nothing can be compensated for. Because these 2 questions of my father made it clear. I cannot turn back the time. I cannot give him back his mother. I cannot give him his stolen childhood. And so I said to the President of Parliament, please sign a letter with me where we say all these things, that we are aware it's too late. 60 years after the war. Now we're coming and we're reaching out and say, oh, we're sorry. I mean, this is ridiculous. Then I said, and I want to be able to travel around the world to find the survivors. I've been to Argentina, to Uruguay, to Israel anyway, to America. I found a lady in a Dallas old age home because a Jewish community member told me, you're looking for Austrian Jews? Over there, she's 95. I filed for her the papers and she got the money. So I was traveling like a mad person to find everybody. And the feedback was not about the money. The feedback was, thank you for finally giving me closure. It's about closure. We had so many letters coming in from kids of survivors who wrote to me and said, what did you do with my mother? She's crying now, she's sleeping badly. So I said, we just asked her what happened in 38, because these people were never asked. And we listened. That's what we're still doing today.
So Hannah, besides giving direct financial support to Austrian victims, for Jewish and non-Jewish victims of the Holocaust, can you talk about educational programs and what else you're doing? Because it's a much broader, just writing in Czech. You have a broader mandate to help. And what are you trying to do?
Save the world.
Exactly. I usually answer. I say it's good. It's better than what I say. I usually just say world domination, but I'm going to say
no, it's Tikkun Olam. There's nothing. It's, I had to admit after 26 years in the job that I couldn't save the world, but there is something which so many people always quote from the Sprüche der Väter.
Pirkei Avot.
Pirkei Avot, thank you. When you're saving one life, you save the world, but it's not true. It's not the world. You're saving one world. Each life has one world. For me, this is, so if I can't save the whole world, but at least I saved a few small worlds. I gave them closure. I gave them the possibility to remember maybe that one day they had a good life here.
So the structure though so you're giving, besides giving money to survivors, so two questions. You're doing and running educational programs for teachers and schools and guides and things like this. What happens when there are no survivors? Do you close the fund? Does that continue in an educational sense? How does your mission change? What will you do?
So within the National Fund, we have been appointed to renovate all the Jewish cemeteries in Austria and to make sure that they are upkept forever, because there were 200,000 Jews before the war. Now we are 8,000. Hebra Kadisha, I mean, how much can you put in? So these graves have to be taken for. The General Settlement Fund, which I was responsible also, I was in the team of the negotiation under Stuart Eisenstadt. In 2001, we signed 400 million euros, which we distributed as compensation. And we had also a panel, an arbitration panel giving back houses. So if you were lucky and the house was owned today by the state, we could give it back in nature. So these things are all over. Education, as you said, yes, it's a very important part. We are publishing books, many books. You can look it up in the website. We just published, our last book is about Auschwitz, because we have interviewed 30,000 Austrian survivors from all the victims groups. And because we also gave them restitution for real losses, we have there in our archives files on families starting in 1820 to today. So out of this, we are making tools for education, because as you mentioned, unfortunately, we are losing the survivors at a pace which is terrible. During Corona, I was in touch with my survivors in Israel, in the United States, and they told me, Hannah, I am still here at the age of 97 because till last year I could go to see students and tell them what happened.
Wow.
Now I lost the meaning of my life. There is nobody here to listen. I can do it, yes, virtually. I mean, we set up a lot of virtual meetings for them and they did great jobs, but it's not the same. They want to sit in front of the student and feel that they can feel that they are anxious when democracy is endangered. And all around the world, we see that we are endangered. I mean, you sit in a country where it's difficult. Austria is in a difficult world. The pandemic has shown us that we haven't learned anything from history. They're running around with Star of David here in the demonstration and saying because they are being sort of forced to get a vaccine. So yes, in 26 years, I've been working a lot with the Shoah Foundation, seeing if the holograms are a good idea, or on Instagram, story, is it good? Or TikTok challenges.
Yeah.
Do kids understand these tools? Do we need to use those tools to educate them? I don't have answers to everything. The only answer is that we should never stop. That's why we have now a new prize, which we are distributing, which is called the Simon Wiesenthal Prize. It's also on our website. I'm very badly organized. I should have shown you now but it's all on our website. It's international, so people can hand in projects, civil society projects, fighting anti-Semitism, and for the dissemination of the knowledge on the Holocaust. Because unfortunately, it doesn't stop here, and it doesn't start with the Jew, but it always gets somehow to the Jew. We need to continue. We need to educate. Even I just came back from Malmö, I was 21 years ago in the Stockholm Forum. Now I was in the Malmö Forum. We haven't advanced very much because also in between we had the internet and social media. Before when we were fighting theories about conspiracy, okay, newspaper article or discussion groups. Now with social media, I mean, this is out of the open in a second.
Yeah.
So yeah, we need to continue.
You mentioned one of the things, the hologram project, dimensions and testimony. So this is something that I'm very excited about. Somebody came and spoke to us about doing that in Krakow, and I've spoken many times to the Shoah Foundation about it. I'll actually be in a couple of days in Los Angeles and go visit the Shoah Foundation.
Hello to Stephen. He's leaving.
I know. I'll see Stephen. Friday or
and
Monday. Heather, I will see. Yeah, so I'll be there.
Say hello.
Yeah, so I think to me, I know there's a little bit of controversy about it, but there's always a hesitation with technology, and you could make the same argument saying, wait a minute, you want to record somebody, but that's not real, and you're looking at them two-dimensionally. So to me, what's the difference, two-dimensional or more interactive, three-dimensional? But I also want to say, for us, we actually, of course, met through Holocaust Survivor Day, and this idea, and you talk so passionately about the survivors, and this is something that has become really a crusade for us here in Krakow because of our survivors here, but also because we are in an interesting place as the community near Auschwitz, and how the role of the survivors affects people's attitude toward the Holocaust, and seeing beyond only purely the victimhood, and also seeing the heroism, and seeing this amazing ability, like someone like your father, who not only picked up his life, but picked up his life and went on to great things, and personally building a family, but professionally. And this is something that I think we the Jewish people need to balance, not only focusing on the loss of the Holocaust, but focusing on what the message can also be a positive message of the Holocaust.
A survivor friend of mine once told me, everybody always asks us how we died. Nobody asks us how we lived.
Yeah.
And how beautiful is this? Because when people see me, and I have my Magen David open, because in Austria I wear it openly. I never had problems. So here you can see it. You can see it. They say, did you suffer? Did your family suffer? So I said, what's this question? Yeah, but you're Jewish. So no, I didn't suffer. I'm born after the war. But even then, how about asking me, how are Jewish traditions? How do I live? How is Yom Kippur? What is Rosh Hashanah? Ask me, but don't always associate me only with the Holocaust. So I think this is one very important thing that we really have to continue to say, that it's not only about being a victim. So many survivors, friends of mine, told me, stop calling me victim.
Yeah.
I was perpetrated, I survived, I'm an exilee, but victim, I don't want to be a victim. Stop doing this.
They're overcomers. They've overcome. This is what
That's a nice idea. Overcomers.
Hannah, it must be, Hannah, it must be so difficult for you because you have forged such a strong relationship seeking out the survivors and supporting the survivors over the years, and 26 years, and you just have to watch them get older.
Terrible.
And
Terrible. It's
that's not,
yeah, we are inaugurating now. No, there are two things. I'm in the board of the International Auschwitz Committee with Marian Turski.
Yes.
Marian just gave me a book where he dedicated it to me, and also on the opening of the Auschwitz exhibition now in Poland. I was moderating, so I was sitting in the back behind the music. And while he was speaking, he turned his back to the audience and looks at me and says, "You are my heir, you will take over."
Wow.
And I mean, you know, I don't know if we dare think that we can do it, but I don't want to think about the time without Marian. I lost my parents, so and I lost so many of these survivors who gave me so much sense in my life, who you know, they taught me to be humble because we have everything. And when I just get up in the morning and I know that I'm allowed to work with them, I'm so grateful. And there was one survivor that I've been following now for 20 years. Kurt Tutter, he lives in Canada, he's 91. And 13 years ago, and I have the letter always in my wallet, he wrote to me a letter and said, "I'm looking for my cousin Regi, because when I was a kid in 1939, I saw her the last time, then we fled to Belgium. And I know from all the other members of my family where they died, where they were killed, only him and his sister survived. His parents were deported from Belgium and they were hiding there." And then I told him, okay, I will look. And then in my computer, I found his cousin Regi. I wrote to her that her cousin is looking for her. And so he wrote to me in a letter, first of all, biggest mitzvah that you could do in life, I'm not alone anymore. And then if one day you go to heaven's gate, if they still exist, take this letter with you, they will let you in without further ado. So I have my letter in my wallet. So 2 years later, in 1999, he comes to Vienna and says, "Hannah, my parents are on a wall of names in Brussels, where all the killed Jews from Brussels and Belgium are inscribed. And I want the same thing for Vienna." So I said, well, we just had our Rachel White-Red memorial on the Judenplatz, so I suppose the city of Vienna will not really, but I was in love with this man. So I said, "Kurt, whatever you want, I try." And for 20 years, we were running from every city mayor, from every secretary of culture. And yes, you can do it there. No, we can do it there. No. Then we tried to finance it privately and it was impossible. And in 2018, our young, now ex-chancellor, heard about the project because Moshe Kanto from the European Jewish Congress gave an anti-Semitism speech here and said, walls of names are important because we need names. And so after 20 years, on the 9th of November, so next week, Kurt is coming to Vienna and we will inaugurate the wall of names.
wow.
And you will not see if I show you the pictures, but I will send them to you and you can use them. I mean, I touched for the first time the name of my grandmother. Kurt Tutter sat down and looked at the names of his family and started telling me his story, which he didn't tell me for many, many years. So this is something they are so strong. There was another person who was initiating in Malitrostinets. Malitrostinets in Belarus is the biggest killing site of Austrian Jews. And I mean, we know what Belarus is, but we succeeded in 10 years' time to erect an Austrian monument with the 10,000 first names of the killed Jews and Jews. So this is also educational work, to come back to your question, because we had, Pierre Nora once said, milieux de mémoire, which are the memory milieu. How do you say this? Well, it's like the family where the memory is kept, but if the survivors are dying, we need lieux de mémoire, which are places of memory.
Yeah.
So these kind of, okay, even if some survivors say, please give me the money and don't put it in stones, you can do it when we're dead. But it's now time to give also the second generation. This is one thing that we're also doing, because you mentioned it before. We are helping the children of survivors to get back their citizenships. We are doing all the historical research, because in the beginning of the National Fund, when I went to ask for the job, I said, you know what I ask from you? I want always to have enough personnel and all the archives open. Because when my father fled to Palestine through Trieste and then with the ship, he had to jump down from the ship to go ashore. You really think that he had documents with him? So if I now ask from the people to prove anything to me, I will turn down all of them. So you open up the archives. So then they opened up the archives, and at the peak of my job, I had 160 employees.
Wow.
Because we were researching for over 30,000 families, what was stolen from them, what happened. And so we have this archive, which is huge. And so today, many descendants come to see us and say, can you tell me something about somebody who was called Uncle Moishe? So we would draw up a family tree and say, yeah, he was from here. He was from Czernowitz. We can do this. And then we give them 30, 40, 50 pages of documents.
Hannah, absolutely inspiring.
Unbelievable.
It's an honor to work with you and to partner with you. And I look forward to learning from you and to really try to see what, if we can take what you've learned and help help the survivors around the world based on your experience. And I will tell you that I think that, and not until 120 at least, but when eventually it will be time for you and you'll be standing at the pearly gates, I think that you're in good shape with or without that letter.
Thank you so much. And sorry, when I start speaking about my job, I didn't leave lots of space for you.
That's why we don't want, nobody needs to hear any more of us. We want to hear from you. Hannah, thank you so much. Be well, and looking forward to
Thank you.
being in-
Toda, kol tuv. Bye.
Toda.
Thank you.
Be well.
Bye-bye. Thank you.